Book one I was all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is engaging, insightful, authentic, heart centered leader and entrepreneur, no other than Mr. Louis Kim.
Thanks, thanks, Daniel. I'm excited to talk to
Welcome
you.
to Yes, welcome to Book 101, Mr. Louis. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and talk to your audience. I'm the founder of a private equity firm based here in Washington, D.C. It's called USON Capital. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, 20 plus years of buying, building, and selling small businesses. We've, in the last 6 years, formalized that into the private equity firm where we bring a lot of those small business operational values at a little bit higher scale.
Well, Mr. Louis Kim, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And let's talk about finding purpose and mission. How do you distinguish between purpose and mission, between external expression, or why is it clarifying both essential?
Yeah, so you used a really important word in that question just now, which is clarity, clarify. And clarity is the greatest gift I think a person can have when it comes to their life, a business, any sort of anything you do in life, being absolutely clear. And in order to be truly clear, you have to know where you're going, right? You have to know the destination. And so understanding the actual why behind you're doing something. And, if I want to go build a house, why? Why is it important that I build this house and why I get there? Because when we know our why, we find our purpose, we find our intended goal of what we're getting there. And within that sense of direction and certainty of what you're trying to build along the way, you're living and embodying the mission behind reaching that goal. For me, my mission in life is to be an example of a heart-centered leader, and to do that in the entrepreneurial and business place, because too often, you know we look at business as being cold, and we look at it as being dehumanizing, when it is actually, this entrepreneurial thing is a very human endeavor. It's something well within us, because all humans are born with the desire to grow. And what other enterprise exists where truly the ability to grow is limitless, in the world of entrepreneurship?
Mr. Lewis, why do popular frameworks like Ikigai often frustrate seekers? What's more realistic starting point?
Well, if you mean, I think every journey begins with an individual, and even in the masses with groups, there's individuals involved. And I think that every journey should begin within, and it begins within because we need to be clear about who we are, what our values are, and what are important to us, because there's so many distractions. I mean, it's, in your podcast, if you think about the authors you come on and you think about the stories being told, we all live in the hero's journey, right? Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, and that begins within, right? I mean, the very first stage of that is the call to adventure, right? And that call to adventure also begins with the resistance to it, right? This resistance to pull, because it's an internal beginning. So I think anything that we start or begin with really has to start within ourselves and understanding where we are, because the road is fraught with dangers. And any one of the epic tales, whether it's Lord of the Rings, to Star Wars, wherever it is, the path ahead, there are perils. And if we know who we are and where we're headed to and where our destination is, we can stay resolute and certain on our path.
Very well said, Mr. Lewis. Very well said. Beautifully articulated.
I love the applause.
This is really for you. You deserve it. How can tracking what drains versus energizes us reveal more about purpose than passion alone?
Yeah, passion. I'm going to start with the passion part because passion, there's this belief that passion occurs by something just being ignited. And yes, sometimes it can. But as people and as humans, you'll often find we become truly passionate about the things we're really good at, right? We develop the skills and we get there and we get passionate because how great we start to become. And there's something I like to share is that everybody, I believe, is born with a greatness within them. There is a greatness within all of us that's given to us by whatever higher power you believe in. But the world, the cacophony of the world, creates these filters and this distractions that prevents us from seeing it. And when we can go inward and find it and learn to silence and filter the noise, you can truly find and hear that voice, and that voice that reveals your greatness. And our dreams, I believe, often are a part of that voice, but sometimes our dreams may not be aligned with what our sort of given gift is, right? Our greatness, because our dreams may come from this other place, but the gifts that we are given, we can find them, and when we find them, it'll take us down a path where passion is just it's inevitable.
Can you expound more this phrase on your website? Be your own boss.
Yeah, so you're on our coaching program. So I started this year, you know, taking 20 plus years of experience because my desire to teach others, to teach leadership, and my belief in the entrepreneurial spirit is to take people who are sort of mid-career professionals who are really at the point where they've done pretty well in whatever profession they're in, but they may not be really happy, and they may start to have this existential crisis, the proverbial midlife crisis. And many of the people, and most of the people we work with, are people who are coming from the corporate world, and so they've lived the employee life, but maybe have excelled and are at a management level. But really, what we are teaching them is to own and to become an owner, which is ultimately driven to be your own boss, which is to be the person that is in control, in charge. Because for as I said earlier, the entrepreneurial growth in anything is really limitless to what we can do. And if you're in control of what you do every day in terms of your work, you're really in control with your future and destiny. And so being your own boss is really about shaping and creating the road that you're on, uh, to a lifestyle or a destination that you're seeking.
Mr. Lewis, what impact do I want my 80-year-old self to have had? How this question cut through noise.
Yeah, so I appreciate you asking this. So I had an experience, a little while back where my wife and I, we traveled to Hawaii, and in Hawaii we stayed at this beautiful Airbnb on the waterfront in a little town called Hana. And if anyone's been to Maui, there's this amazing drive. It's 2+ hours called the Road to Hana. It's a little treacherous because it's a one-lane road each way that's on the side of the mountain, and you sometimes feel like you might drive off of it. But this community in Hana is very remote and it's kind of distant. There's not a lot of distractions. It's a very small community. And as I was sitting there in the morning watching these sunrises, I sat there and I just felt the presence of something really great. I mean, the 3 nights we got to stay there, every morning the sun was rising, and I was in awe. And I was in awe of this thing, and it made me feel very small. It made me feel the presence of something more, right? And whatever someone believes, is my feeling of having God there. And I sat there and really said, "Hey, I think I have finally found what the definition of a good life is to me." And if I can find myself in my older age, in my 70s and 80s, where every day I'm fortunate enough to wake up to this kind of feeling, then I will know I can look back on my life that I had led a good life because I've been now given the grace to be able to live in this place every day.
Interesting, Mr. Lewis. Indeed, interesting. How do you advise balancing financial stability with mission driven work?
I don't think there is a balance. I think there is a convergence. I think if you're truly driven and understand this entrepreneurial path, you'll find the place and you'll find the way where these two things don't have to be in conflict. And for me, for a very long time, making money, doing good, and being happy were compartmentalized and they were separate things. And when you find that purpose of what you're supposed to be doing and what your life is about, you will find the path where those things converge. And so being financially stable and financially able to afford and take care of your family and life, those things I believe will come when you truly know where that path is, because you will be so exceptional that greatness comes out that you can't be um, you're going to be heard, and if you're going to be heard, you will be rewarded.
For sure. You will be rewarded, people. How can failed careers for abandoned path be reframed as data, not waste?
So anything anything that happens to us happens for us. There's lessons in everything, and I think if we can learn from anything that is considered a mistake or a quote unquote failure, really they are our greatest teachers. I think it was the proverbial Edison story about creating the incandescent light bulb that, it was thousands of efforts. And then someone asked, how did you fail so much? And his response was essentially, no, that was like the 999th time I learned how not to do it. And I think if we can learn from everything we experience, especially those things that are mistakes or quote unquote failures, I think we'll always be in growth. And honestly, as humans, our desire to grow is so strong. Much of our happiness comes when we're growing. And so if we can learn from those things and not stay in them and be mired, that's where we can truly continue to be and seek and find and feel the happiness that exists around us.
Why does the pressure to find your purpose trigger existential stress?
Well, I think part of it is what, as sort of what I said earlier, is that there's so much noise. There's so many distractions. I mean, I got an ad the other day on Instagram for some device now where you mount it on your wall, and then on your phone you can turn off all of the social media apps, and that the only way you can turn it back on is you take your phone and you go over and then it taps in it, and that's how it unlocks it. So you can't manually unlock it. We're so conditioned to jump around and be in the noise, and I think we live in a world of such heightened fight or flight state all the time. When we start really thinking about or attempting to even understand what's within us, there's so much anxiety and fear over it because we're so distant from the native place of being still and centered so that we can hear what we need to hear. And I think a vast majority is most people live their lives not truly being awake, but just trying to get through the day. And so when they start to ask themselves the question, what makes me happy, or what should I do? What is my purpose or mission in life? They feel so lost because they don't even feel like they can find happiness in every day. And so it's I think a big part of it is conditioning. I think another big part of it is in most modern countries, it's not something that's really valued. So we don't take a lot of time to seek it or learn it. It's all about making more money, getting the bigger house, and doing all of those things. So I think it feels like a crisis because there is so much noise in the world, and we have forgotten what it's like to really feel.
Again, Mr. Lewis, very well said. Very well said. As a centered leader and entrepreneur, what are your short term and long term goals?
So for our company, in the world of private equity, our goal is over the next 10 years is to have $1 billion assets under management, which in my world is fairly small. However, from where we are starting from and where we're going towards, it is a pretty audacious goal, especially because I did not start my career on Wall Street. I started it on Main Street. And then when it comes to our coaching program, we have a goal of helping 1,000 individuals go from career minded professional to owning their first business and really thriving. And for me, the bonus of doing that is I'm going to be very selective, and I am selective of the types of people, because what I would like to do is teach people who understand the value system I'm trying to bring along, which is to be a heart-centered leader, is to be one who looks at the world in a way of creating value rather than extracting it.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Louise, and looking forward for more and more and more success. What would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a centered leader like you as well as entrepreneur?
I would say for anyone, in particular, people who are looking to do things differently, like I am, the road and the journey and the path, just like the hero's tale, begins with the hero. And if in this case, you are the hero. And so that has to start within. And even if you bought a very successful business or you got into a very successful venture, the growth of whatever that thing is will always be limited by its leader. And so if the leader is short-sighted and the leader can't see beyond, can't see the forest for the trees, then that enterprise and those people following or being a part of that team, they will suffer. And so anyone who's seeking growth, who is seeking the entrepreneurial path, or anyone who's just seeking to be better, I implore you, don't seek the answer outside of yourself. Seek the answer that exists within, because there you will find the truth about who you are.
Thank you for your advice, Mr. Louise, and hoping our listeners or viewers will follow that empowering advice. How can trauma or adversity become a directional force? When does this become toxic?
I think, well, I'll start with the second part there. Anything we cannot control when pain happens to us as humans. Pain is an inevitable part of life. And sometimes those things become traumatic and we hold on to them. And the toxicity comes from when we experience something that's so devastating and traumatic, and we hold on to it and we dwell on it, and we give it power by doing that. And the longer you stay in that place and the longer you hold on to it, the less you're able to grow. And if you can change it, and as I said before, pain is inevitable, but what we do have control over is our experience of that pain. And so the pain that we feel, it can either be a story about tragedy or it can be a story about triumph. And this is the other side of it, is that we all know of a story of someone who has been through something very traumatic, and then they achieve heightened levels of success in some field, and we're in awe of it. And I believe that awe comes from a place of understanding that we have that ability too, but we're, as an individual, when we see it and we sort of laud it and we put it on a pedestal, it's because we feel like we're not capable of that. And I would like to just say that with that trauma, if you can let it go, or you can change the story behind what it is and what it means in the arc of your life, that's when it can become empowering. And that's when that trauma can then become like a superhero, like Spider-Man by being bitten by the, radioactive spider, right? That could be the traumatic event, or it could be the thing that becomes the superpower. And that's all within the story that we tell ourselves of that experience.
Mr. Lewis, can you recommend a book that influenced your journey?
Yeah, so I've been excited because when I was younger, I thought I was going to be a writer. So
You
my
still have the time.
yeah, yeah. I thought I was going to write the next great American novel, and then I found myself in business. So I love this book. I've loved it since the first time I read it, and I find it so rereading it later in life, it's so interesting the different things I see and understand and comprehend now. But it's Ernest Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea.
Yes, highly recommended.
It's an interesting. I looked this up before we came on because I didn't actually know the number, but more than half of the narrative in the book is the battle between Santiago and the Marlin, right? Like that's like it's the bulk of the book, and it's such a beautiful metaphor of life that it's about the journey, right? He goes through this. It's about resilience, it's about courage, it's about overcoming um adversity, and then going out there and proving yourself in this duel, and just having this ability to consistently pursue it. And then when you achieve it, on the return, here's the big marlin to then fight the sharks that are eating all the flesh away. And then there's another trial, and there's another, adverse situation, and coming to shore, he's got nothing more than the bones of the fish left, but people can still see what's there. But the reality is he didn't need to bring it back, because for him, it was about what he did for himself. It's I wrote this down, the quote, and it's probably the more famous quote, and it's so central to the book, is a man is not for defeat. A man can be destroyed, but not defeated. And this is very much in line with the question you asked about trauma. A person can be destroyed, but you're not defeated. And I find this book so inspiring, just on an ongoing basis.
Thank you for your recommendation, Mr. Lewis. Thank you so much for empowering us. For those with faith, how does spiritual grounding shape mission?
Um, I I believe this voice that's within me, that I have learned to hear, is the voice that's instilled by a greater power, and that spiritual side of things. We are, as humans, in this physical body, but we are more than that, and we are the soul. And the soul craves something far beyond the material and physical goods of the world. And fulfillment doesn't come from the external material body, it comes from the soul. And that fulfillment comes from being on a path of purpose and mission that's being fulfilled. Like you're in the place you're supposed to be, and it just feels, it's like putting on the right pair of shoes. You just know you are where you're supposed to be. And so I believe the spiritual path is the path to finding that deeper sense of purpose, because you've got to filter through all the cerebral, intellectual brain stuff to get into the soul, because the soul knows the direction of where you're going, and the soul knows the gift, right? The greatness that you have been given, it knows it. It's there.
Before we wrap up our discussion today, Mr. Lewis, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my Food 101 in its fifth season as well. Geography 101 and fourth season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 and fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. Mr. Lewis, share one daily ritual to reconnect with purpose when feeling adrift.
Uh, for me, I get into a cold plunge every morning. So I have a setup in my garage, and it's set to 43 degrees, and I get there every morning because when I wake up, I meditate, but the key is getting in that cold plunge. That intensity puts me into a place of heightened awareness, and in those moments, I very much connect with my physical body, so that then I can connect to my spirit and connect to the goals and the things that I want to pursue, and really the intensity of the situation teaches me presence because I have to accept it. I can't fight it. And when I embrace it, I become more centered. And the more centered I am, the better I am as a person in business and life, and as a leader.
Mr. Lewis Kim, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or any projects that you're doing right now?
Yes. So you've got it up on the screen. For those of you that are interested in finding your purpose through entrepreneurial path, you can reach out at theownerspath.com, or you can find me on Instagram or TikTok at just Parts of Lou, which is very personal and where I share stories and uh, just present myself. And it is something where if you send me a direct message, I will respond personally to it.
Yes, people that support Mr. Lewis Kim because if you support him, more and more and more empowering business to come, more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Mr. Lewis, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.
Thank you.